This is the Rebound Rundown. I'm your host, Paul Fritchner. Your home for college basketball in the Cincinnati area and across the country every Monday through Friday during the season. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Great to welcome on Rocco Miller. This is one of my favorite conversations of the year every year, and it's March, which means Rocco joins the Rebound Rundown, a college basketball analyst, and as it relates today, a bracketologist. Make sure if you're watching this on YouTube, you go down, you hit the subscribe button, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you can go listen in podcast form. Search the Rebound Rundown on any major podcast platform and listen there. But Rocco, we're going to get right to it. You're telling me that you're watching the ASUN tournament right now. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but we have some things to get to as it relates to the teams around this area. And I cannot believe if you had told me 1 month ago that I would be talking to you about to ask you this question, I would have called you crazy. But here we are, Cincinnati. Where are the Bearcats as it relates to the NCAA tournament right now? They're playing as one of the best teams in the country, but do they have a shot at making the NCAA tournament?
Well, I think, their chances got a little better for winning the Big 12 tournament yesterday, because I think their chances to get into the top eight seeds of the Big 12 tournament looks good. I think if it started tomorrow, they would be at least the 8 seed, maybe even the 7 seed. And that's important because the way the Big 12 bracket is designed, there's a drop-off from 8 to 9. You have to play the early round if you're 9 through 16. So that means Cincinnati can just go to Kansas City, win 4 games instead of 5. That's a much more realistic path for the Bearcats. If they play at this level, you can't count them out. But as it pertains to an at-large bid, I think they need a few more weeks of basketball, and unfortunately, there's only a few more days of regular season basketball, mainly because you look at what's happened away from Cincinnati throughout the year. They're 2-10. I know there's one very heavy win in the 2 with the win at Fog Allen Fieldhouse, but they lost pretty much everywhere else. In fact, they lost in every state on the road except for the state of Kansas. Those 2 wins were both Kansas State and Kansas. They also tacked on an Eastern Michigan home loss that you just can't get rid of. The way the committee looks at resumes is the entire body of work. All 31 games matter, and the records are still very ugly across the board for the Bearcats. The top 3 quadrants, they're 10-12, and typically almost any team under 500 won't get selected as an at-large. There are some exceptions, especially if you have a elite road win like Cincinnati has, but then when you throw in that quad 4 loss to Eastern Michigan, it really just kind of punts the conversation sideways. They would need a couple more weeks to make up for a lot of these records. They're still 3-10 in quad 1, 5-11 in the top 2 quads, and still 58th in the wins above bubble metric. I think if they could crack the top 50, that would probably require a couple of wins in the Big 12 tournament. I know they get a decent to quality opportunity to finish up with TCU, a team who's played their way into the field now with their win at Texas Tech for sure yesterday. But it's a little bit of too little too late, unfortunately, for the Bearcats. It's been a great run. And like I said before, if they can stay hot, they're 4 wins away probably once they get to Kansas City.
So the argument I think a lot of Cincinnati fans might make would be to say that they didn't have Jizzle James for a while, and now they do. How does the committee, or even you look back at the Eastern Michigan game now, look, there are no excuses for losing to Eastern Michigan. I don't care who you have on the floor. If you are Cincinnati as a Big 12 team, you have to win that game. But, if you want to just play out the string here, you could say that they were pretty injured in that game too. I don't think that matters, but is there any credence to now the fact that they have the whole roster that the committee might look at it and say, here's what they are now?
There definitely is. And I think if Cincinnati were to break through as a automatic qualifier from the Big 12, again, that's a long shot. A lot of great teams in the league, but still the way they're playing, you can't count them out. That would help their seed a lot, plus all the wins they would get in the Kansas City run. However, and it will help them a little bit to get maybe some exceptions. What the committee has told us, Paul, is player availability is going to be a big discussion across the board, starting with JT Toppin at the top of the sport, with Mr. Wilson at North Carolina, Darren Peterson at Kansas. There's a long list right now. Richie Saunders at BYU. And this is no different. It's more about the team you're bringing to the tournament. And in that case, Cincinnati would be a lot more interesting because you pull up the games that Jizzle James has been a part of. He's played in 20 of them. In those games, Cincinnati, they did lose to teams like West Virginia twice with Jizzle James, but they didn't take their really horrendous loss to Eastern Michigan or the Xavier loss with Mr. James. So there's some credence there. You also, in this conversation annually, we talk about this with certain teams every year, Paul. You have to remember they can't just automatically assume you would have won the game. The loss still counts for something. It just might get a little bit of an exception here or there if it's close. But I just think with the record Cincinnati has and how far away they are from some of these other bubble resumes, just in terms of cleanliness and closer to 500 and above 500 records, it's probably too little too late. But again, I think it makes it interesting. And if Cincinnati does win the Big 12 tournament, they could end up with a pretty decent seed, actually, because of that.
So to wrap up this Cincinnati discussion, let's say for the sake of argument here, we're recording this on Wednesday. Let's say they beat TCU this weekend and they go into the Big 12 tournament. They have an opportunity to maybe get 1 or 2 or 3 quad 1 wins while you're out there in Kansas City, maybe more than that, depending on how the bracket shakes out. You still think they probably need to win the Big 12 tournament to hear their name called?
Probably, yes. And it'll be interesting, right? Because every year the committee tries to tell us that these championship week games matter. And for the most part, they haven't meant a lot unless it's early in the week. Wednesday, Thursday games tend to matter a little bit if you're right on the bubble. But once we get to Friday into Saturday, they wrap up their voting. There's a whole 24-hour period between Saturday and Selection Sunday where I think they're spending the majority of their time meeting with the networks, trying to get announcer teams assigned, travel coordinated. There's already been Matt Norlander's been out there this week talking about that, where the travel with the women's and the men's both being at the same time is getting harder and harder to coordinate this year. So they're going to need time for all that. It's a lot of the same individuals involved. And I just think that plays into some of the reason why you don't see a lot of shifts when a team makes a run to the conference title game. You remember Texas A&M a couple of years ago, Paul, made that great run to the SEC finals, and it's like the committee ignored the whole thing. They still went to the NIT. They should have easily been a tournament team. Just one small example. Last year, we did see Texas win their first 2 games and somehow break through into the field, playing against your Xavier team in Dayton. That was, to me, very surprising on a lot of levels. So I don't want to rule it out. And they have made some statements this year that they'll be paying attention and factoring it in, but they'll have to do some quick voting and coordination to make an exception for a team like Cincinnati. But I think the way they're playing does make them very interesting. They are 9-8 right now in the Big 12. A win over TCU helps their conference record finish at 10-8. Now, again, that's just listed on the site. It's not any kind of criteria for selection. Your non-conference is just as important as your conference. But again, that could help them get to the 7 seed and maybe get a chance to play like a Houston or an Arizona in that quarterfinal round. And if they get that opportunity and win that game, there's going to be a lot of buzz, no doubt.
All right, Rocco, let's move on from Cincinnati to some of the other teams we cover here on the Rebound Rundown. And one of them will go right up the road to Oxford with Miami. And I don't want to get into all the discourse about, should they be in, should they not? Because I know right now in your brackets that you're doing, you have them in because they're the automatic qualifier. So that's what we're going to go with right now. But I will ask you 1 or 2 quick questions on the RedHawks. First off, let's say they go undefeated, 34-0. What do you think their seed ceiling is?
Ceiling, you could argue all the way up to a 7. I'm not going to project that personally because I think if you start looking at any of the power metrics, whether it's Ken Palm, Torvik, BPI, or even the net itself, where Miami, Ohio's 53 today. In the other 3 I listed, they're in the 80s. I think one of them has them in the 90s. They're gonna be like the bottom 11 seed, and that's where I've projected them all year. But if you go off the WAB, if you go off strength of resume, their resume is better than so many teams now. I think this morning I saw strength of resume has the RedHawks 21. I mean, that would represent a 6 seed, right? So the voting will be very interesting if they finish 34-0, get that MAC title, double title in Cleveland. But I think for my own projection, I think they stick at the 11-10 mark. And I'm going off of last year mainly for that, and I'll explain. Drake and UC San Diego were our darlings last year from the non-Power 5 and like the non-A10 WCC type of level. And the UC San Diego Tritons got totally disrespected. That was a top 35 KenPom team, Paul. And they put them in a 12-seed game against Michigan. Just totally treated them like nothing. And then there was rumors of Drake maybe being down to a 12 as well. They ended up getting an 11 and, of course, knocked off Mizzou in the opener, the 11-6 game. And those two teams, from a performance point of view, they played big-time teams and got big-time wins. Miami, Ohio didn't have the chance to do that. They're going to be all over the map with how they vote this. So they could land as a 10, but I do think eventually I'll project them 11 no matter what.
If they win on Friday against Ohio and lose in the MAC tournament, do you think they get in with one loss, just in general, even if they go to Dayton?
Yeah, they're getting in. They're getting in. And I think I'm very confident about that because, it's like so hard to do that. Go through your entire schedule, regular season, and go 28-0 against Division I. We'll throw the 3 non-Division I games out of there. That's just unprecedented stuff. So of course they're getting in. And I think the other thing too, just if you're a Red Hawk fan, you want a little bit of insurance, take a look at the WAB right now. It's the tool that is new to the NCAA as of last year. This will be year 2. What's really great right now is the NCAA is actually providing us with the decimal points. And if Miami, Ohio loses a game, it's going to cost them about a full point in the WAB. It's an accumulation tool, so it's very easy to track. And as we sit here today on Wednesday, the 4th, Paul, Miami, Ohio is at 2.42 above zero. And by the end of the season, the tool's designed to only have 45 teams or less above zero. So even if Miami, Ohio takes that one loss, they're going to be around 1.5 or so. 1.5 right now would be equal to like Texas A&M and NC State and Texas. So they're still pretty clearly above the cut line. Now, they might throw them in that bottom number 46 spot where I keep putting them if you look at my bracketology big board. But that doesn't matter to Red Hawk fans, I'm sure. Just getting in is all that matters.
Yeah.
And they might make them start in Dayton, which could be kind of fun, actually. Take a few buses over there from Oxford and have a good time with it. But they're getting in if they do that. And I also think if they lose to Ohio, a trip to the championship game should definitely do it as well, because that would get them to 29 Division I wins. And no team with 29 Division I wins has ever been left out. So I don't think that's a precedent the committee's willing to break either.
I know a lot of Red Hawk fans in Oxford and around the country love what you just said in that segment. All right, moving on to another red team, this time down in the Bluegrass State, Louisville. My one question to you about Louisville that I remember last year was a problem in the NCAA tournament, and I think it was a Louisville problem last year, was how you do in some of your biggest games, right? But also how you play on the road. And they have not played well on the road this year. In fact, when they've taken losses on the road, they've been pretty terrible losses on the road in the manner in which they've played in those games. So Louisville is going to be an NCAA tournament team, Rocco, but how does the way their schedule has played out and how they've won and lost their games affect where they're going to be seated?
Yeah, I think it puts a cap on it. So they can't go above teams with these great wins, right? So Louisville's been stuck as a 6 seed, it seems like, for a few weeks now in my forecast. And part of the reason why is the SEC's clogging up the 5 seed line. But if you look, it doesn't matter where you look. Tennessee's gone to Bama, Vandy, and Georgia in one. Vandy's gone to UCF at least in one, and they beat St. Mary's in the battle for Atlantis. You look at Arkansas, they beat Texas Tech in a special game away from Arkansas. And North Carolina's won at Virginia and Kentucky. Louisville's got nothing in terms of on the road. They have 4 tournament quality wins, all in the Yum Center, but they didn't even get a neutral court or a road win above the cut line. So they do have some, they have a base hit, you could call it, at California, who's now out of the field, unfortunately. That was registering for a little while, but now California loses at home to Pitt, not a tournament level win anymore. They won at Baylor, which is a good win, but not like, and it's a neutral court, but almost a road win, playing them in Texas. Good win, but not a tournament level win. Same with the road win at Wake Forest, and then of course at Pittsburgh. Those all mean something, but it's you can't just go road win for road win at Louisville versus those other teams I mentioned before and put them above them. So they're stuck. The good news for Louisville is they have a higher floor based on their performance numbers. They're still averaging 14th best in the country if you take the performance measurements, which are Torvik, Pomeroy, BPI. And so they have a high floor too. So they're just stuck in that 6-7 range. Nothing. Don't do the motion like I did. But I think they're very susceptible to teams like Wisconsin, or even if BYU did a bounce back with a big win, or even Kentucky, who Louisville beat. Kentucky's got better road wins than them, and if they're not being compared head to head, all those teams could still jump Louisville and push them down to a 7. We know last year they ended up getting stuck at an 8-9 game that they got ambushed by Creighton in. So obviously Louisville fans don't want that to repeat itself, but they're susceptible to it because nothing outside the Yum Center has really been that impressive.
All right, let's drive across the state here. Last team we're going to talk about before I let you go, Kentucky. Kentucky's had an up and down year. Every time you think Kentucky's gotten right, they drop a stinker like they did last night on the road at Texas A&M, and we just can't figure this team out. And again, they're going to be a tournament team, but where they end up is going to largely be affected by all these up and down results that we've seen this year. What are your thoughts on Kentucky and where they might end up?
Kentucky's stuck in the same area as Louisville, like I was saying. So they're a 6 seed today as well still, but they're even closer to the border. They're 24th overall, which means one spot from being a 7 seed. You've probably seen Kentucky in that 5, 6, 7 range, the last month and a half, and they just keep yo-yoing back and forth. The good news is they've got the road win at Bud Walton. They're one of the only teams to win at Bud Walton this year. That one's pretty big, in my opinion, because Arkansas has been a different team at home. And of course, they had the Calipari Bowl there and got the big win. And Tennessee's another big road win that they got as well. And then a win over St. John's is very helpful that they got on a neutral court. But at this point, they have 11 losses. It's a lot of losses. And then you look at their road record, it's actually worse in some areas than Louisville. Their overall away from Rupp Arena record is just 5-8. And luckily, 3 of those 5 are the 3 I listed, because that's actually carrying the water for all the to make up for all the losses. So you look at the metrics too, if you want to just double check all the work that way. And they're 26 in wins above bubble, 25 in the strength of resume, and they're right around 26 or 27 in the performance. So they're averaging out to be a 7 seed, but those big road wins have them just slightly above BYU, Villanova, and Wisconsin for me. And then Utah State took a bad loss last night. That also helped Kentucky just maintain on the 6 seed line. But it'd be pretty easy to put a team like St. Mary's, who didn't get to play any of those types of teams, above a Kentucky now, because they only lost 4 games all year. They perform better than Kentucky on average, and they don't really have a lot of bad. So they're getting outperformed now by St. Mary's. And of course, they lost to Louisville head to head. So those are some things that they got to clean up if they want to jump back over them in these last, whatever it is, week and a half to go.
Rocco, you're the best, and this is why I love having you on the Rebound Rundown every year. Again, make sure if you haven't already, you go down and you subscribe to the show, and you subscribe on any major podcast platform. We have tons more of content like this coming up here over the next couple of weeks. Rocco, before I let you go, tell the people where they can find you if they want to read more about your bracketology, find your brackets, all that. Let the people know where they can find all that.
Thanks, Paul. It's been awesome, man. It's always good to be on with you. Always enjoy the discussion. Bracket2.org is the mothership. So that's where all the bracket updates go on for these next week and a half. But stay with us all summer long, because I help all 31 leagues with scheduling behind the scenes. And a lot of times I can put information on the site that's not necessarily publicly available. If you're super into Cincinnati and Miami, Ohio, and Louisville scheduling, I'm usually a good resource for some information there. And we take a lot of pride in that as well. But also we have guest writers. It's been awesome. I think there's 5 or 6 writers now contributing to bracket2.org from all over the country. They'll be covering the NCAA tournament, so I don't have to be at every place at once. That's nice. And then I'll be at one of the regionals. But other than that, Rocco Miller 8 on X/Twitter, and also on Blue Sky. If you follow that, I try to get a few posts up there as well. And then Field of 68, we have a bracketology show Mondays, Fridays, 5 Eastern. Paul, you used to be part of that. We miss you.
I know. I miss doing it with you. Now, I will say,
graduated.
I know. Well, I will say, I I was going to let you go, but you just opened the door. So this is not my fault. This is your fault. I'm going to ask you one more question. You're talking about the scheduling. Yeah. The entire conversation around Miami of Ohio this year has been their scheduling, and it has been couched in the discussion of mid-major teams having trouble finding and scheduling high major teams that don't want to play them. Do you have any thoughts on how Miami's schedule conversations have, let's say, unfolded over the last couple of months?
Yeah, well, Miami, Ohio, we knew was going to be pretty good this year coming into the season. And so I talked to Travis several times in the summer. Same with Jonathan Holmes, who ran point with a lot of the scheduling. Great guys. I mean, we've built a great relationship together. I think what he's saying publicly is more than fair. I don't think there was a single Power Five that wanted to take the risk of playing them. Maybe they could have got a game with somebody with incredible tenure, like a Michigan State with Izzo, or a Bill Self with Kansas. They always play some of the better mid-majors, but with those guys, it comes down to dates. And if your dates don't match, it's really hard to get the game. Same with Alabama. Nate Oates has done an incredible job of playing anybody and everybody. I think the only ones I can think of that maybe were willing to play them, and maybe it just didn't work out dates-wise. I know out here St. Mary's was a team willing to play Miami, Ohio, and pay them to come out. If you've tracked St. Mary's schedules over the years, it makes sense. Like this year, they had Chattanooga, North Texas, Arkansas State, a bunch of teams that were Northern Iowa, a bunch of teams that were projected to either win their league or be top two. That's the St. Mary's model. That's why I love helping them out, because I get to call all the teams I think are going to be good, and they'll actually play them. So that was one that unfortunately didn't work out. Another one, I think maybe Memphis, but Memphis filled up pretty fast. So some of these things are not like teams not wanting to play Miami, Ohio. It's just if they fill their schedule quick, they don't have a spot for them. And I do think those teams being non-Power Fives, they're looking for the same thing that Miami, Ohio is looking for, just more opportunities to play good games. And one reason or another, it didn't work out. I think on the flip side, they did a nice job, at least getting a couple of the games. They went on the road to UNC Asheville. UNC Asheville has been a top 2 Big South team for the last 5 years. I don't think any of us expected them to be in the, what are they now, like 250th? They've averaged like a top 150 finish most of the last 5 years under Mike Morrell. I think that, and Toyaz Solomon was back for them. So I'm a little surprised some of those games they scheduled that were supposed to be tougher worked out to not really help them as much. So I'll give Travis and the boys like 90% credit. They obviously they have to use the platform too to complain about the whole scheduling circumstances too, because it's a risk management session for all the big boys, and they won't play teams like this. And that is 100% factual. And I think everything else, any of the teams that could have played that would have helped, it just bad luck here or there. And I think they tried everything they could.
Rocco, now this time, I promise, no more questions on this show. Now, that's not to say I won't have you on tomorrow. We'll just run it back. But no, I appreciate you coming on. And hopefully at some point here in the month of March, we're going to be kind of bouncing all over the place at a bunch of conference tournaments. So I don't know if we'll run into each other, but either way, safe travels to you. And we'll be following along all your coverage.
Awesome, Paul. Great to be on with you, man.